Good morning and welcome to another Brainstream. I want to discuss a conversation I had after recording yesterday's Reality One podcast episode. We're not going to get into the podcast in the Brainstream. For that, you will have to look out for it. Hopefully we'll edit it up today or tomorrow and try get it out before the end of the week. It was all about augmented reality in education. Just for those of you who are new, Reality One is a podcast about practical use cases of augmented reality. It's a way of introducing and exciting everyday people into the possibilities of what augmented reality can do. We do also focus on AI. We talk about AI, but we focus on augmented reality, which is the way that we are going to be connecting to the digital world without it being this separate other. So today, your phone, your laptop is all separate from the real world. When you go into it, you usually tune out of the real world. And virtual reality will take that to the next level, immerse yourself into a virtual world. However, augmented reality will hopefully merge the two worlds together so seamlessly and so naturally that it won't be an idea of, okay, we're going to take you outside of this world. We're going to keep you in this world. You're still going to be in this reality. This base reality is where you're living. But we are going to augment on top of that the digital world. We're going to have that come seamlessly. And if you do that correctly, if you do that nicely, it will become magic. It'll be indistinguishable from magic, as they say that what good technology is. So the episodes are all about practical use cases, and it's kind of like a day in the life type of thing. We had a conversation afterwards, and I was explaining how I used to make these concept videos under the title and under a mini series called 2025. And in the beginning, I used to put them out, and then I used to get feedback that it reminded people of Black Mirror. So the last couple episodes, I kind of changed the title to look very much Black Mirror-like. But I think what this podcast is, what Reality One is not just the practical use cases, but it's also the positive use cases of augmented reality. It's the way of getting excited about it and seeing the positive use cases. In a way, it's kind of like White Mirror. I mean, for lack of a better title right now, it's not showing the dystopian possibility of it. It's more focusing on what good can come out of it. And the conversation that we had in the podcast, we did touch upon a little bit about there is a lot of beauty that can come out of augmented reality and out of these new technologies, but there is also the possibility of abuse, and we can't really just skim over that and say that that's not a possibility. Now, my focus isn't on the negative. We've got more than enough movies, we've got more than enough Netflix series that kind of deal with the dystopian or the very scary part, or look what could possibly happen. And I think it gets a lot of people nervous, a lot of people scared, and it makes people think that this is what the future is going to be like. And what I want to focus on is, what Reality One focuses on is the beauty. Now, these Brainstreams are kind of a sub podcast out of Reality One where it's not scripted. The podcast now with guests is also not scripted. I write down a few notes beforehand, and then we kind of just go onto different tangents. But the Brainstreams are specifically 10 minutes, maximum maybe 15 minutes, whereas the podcast episodes go from 20 minutes to an hour. And there's a guest on them. So Brainstreams allow me to just pick apart what's on my head for that day, a conversation I've had yesterday, things like that. So today I wanted to discuss that because I feel like I came out of that episode, and we kept sitting and we kept chatting for a while longer after recording the podcast, and I kind of wish that I had kept recording in order to kind of share that maybe in a Brainstream or maybe in another episode. But we really did, although we talked about that, and again, if you are interested in knowing about what augmented reality could look like in education, I highly recommend and advise you to go check out Reality One. I will put a link to where the podcasts are on my website, and I will also give a link to Spotify. In the next couple of days, I will be releasing that episode. It's going to be episode 18. Just to note, when you go to my podcast on the website or in Reality One, you will have the main episodes that start with the episode number and the title. And then you have the brain streams would have brackets of BS in front of them. I haven't yet done a substream, a sub part of the podcast to focus on brain streams, but I am putting up brain streams onto Reality One. For those of you who want to, who like the shorter format of the 10 minutes. I might spin that into its own podcast at a later time when I have more time, and if that's something that is demanded. But right now, I've kind of married it with Reality One right now, before it becomes its own sub-brand or before it becomes its own brand. So we spoke about education, and we started off with like some very simple use cases of like, let's say, anatomical hologram type of things, where you can have like hold a beating heart, have a brain in front of you, dissect a frog, do crazy science experiments. But towards the end of it, we also got onto some very interesting things where we talked about like this window into another classroom, which breaks down barriers and makes the world a smaller place and fixes up communication, or improves communication, where almost as if you and another classroom, whether it's across the city or in another country, it almost feels like there's just like a pane of glass between you and this other classroom. And the way you can communicate, the way you can explore, play, learn, I think could be a very, very interesting perspective. But we also got into this very, very advanced form of education, using AI and this idea of like having this personalized coach. Now, I don't want to spoil it fully because we went into it about an hour long yesterday. So when that comes out, definitely encourage you, if you find this topic interesting, to go check out episode 18, which is all about the education. We pretty much focus on the classroom. I wanted to also go outside the classroom and look into like the art or the outdoor experiences. We touched upon a few different things, but we had so many ideas and we went into so many interesting ideas and went into different tangents that we didn't get to the outside. And so I think that's going to be another episode, like the outside history, things like that. But this, we did end up in the last like 5 minutes. I'll give you a little bit of a sneak preview of where to go look if you want to look at this idea of like, what could it be if we go way beyond the classroom experience? What does that look like if you're integrating with a personalized AI? And we went way beyond what like Khan Academy does in the classroom. We did mention that. And we also went way beyond what it's like to have an AI, or what does that look like, or how it can help it, make the teacher a coach, things like that. So definitely go check it out. But the thing I wanted to, at the end, the last conversation, I'm like, wow, I have so many brain streams that I want to discuss. And I think today's brain stream, besides giving you a little bit of preview or a sneak peek into what to expect in the coming days for the next episode, it's to kind of just talk about this idea of, as much of there's beauty, there can be abuse. I don't think we should focus on the abuse, but it's possible. It's over there. It's when you have a technology, when you look at today's technology and just putting a device in front of a kid, how much negative that can come from that. And we're only starting to learn that, and because the research is only starting to come out, because we don't have a lot of data behind us of like people growing up on this. But as it's coming out, it's looking worse and worse for like socializing and different things in the world. And we discussed a little bit on the podcast, but there's almost something like, I think because the iPad is the other, it's like we shove the screen in front of a child, hope it becomes its babysitter, and leave it to its devices. And someone's developed these things to make them very, very engaging, where the child becomes a consumer and just like stares blindly, or stares, I don't know if blindly is the right word, but stares into this screen for hours on end. Whereas with augmented reality, when you have seamless, natural device that kind of does blur the line, but does it in such a way where you don't realize that you're necessarily spiraling or connecting with the digital world, it can be done in a very good way. And we talk about this concept a lot in the podcast of this subconscious learning, where learning doesn't happen like in the classroom of like this 45-minute session or this period of time, like this subject, where learning can keep happening on the way home, when you walk down the street, when you go to the store, when you're camping in the summer. This education can keep happening in the real world, because that's really where it happens. Anyways, we talk a lot in the podcast. I definitely go check it out. We might go into another podcast, but for today, I will say, see you in the future.